Kardec Radio presents an interview with Marilyn Monroe, Brazil, December 5, 1934. Humberto de Campos, famous member of the prestigious Brazilian Academy of Letters, discarnates. 3 months after his passing, Humberto writes again, this time through the mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier, then 24 years of age. The piece is written through Chico Xavier, Sheikh Brazil. The eloquent style of Humberto de Campos was reborn through the mediumship of an uneducated young man from a small town in the interior of Brazil. Public attention turns into public debate. The matter becomes a hot topic in the Brazilian media, and the family of the discarnate writer sues the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, FEB, publisher of Humberto's posthumous works. The Brazilian justice system acquits FEB of any wrongdoing, and FEB decides on its own to publish the new books under a pen name to avoid further uproar. The name chosen by Humberto himself, Brother X, was an allusion to another pseudonym he used while incarnate, Counselor X. In his 12 following books, Humberto de Campos wrote fantastic stories from the beyond. He interviewed famous celebrities, national heroes, emperors, and apostles of Christ. One of the most interesting of such pieces is the one we bring you here. An interview with actress Marilyn Monroe, who, after passing in Los Angeles on August 5, 1962, tells us what happened after her physical death. 7 years after her death, Marilyn talks with Humberto de Campos about the dangers of physical beauty, fame, and fortune. In the interview, Marilyn Monroe discards homicide theories, tells us she had no intention of committing suicide, and shares with us her plans for the future.
We were strolling along Wilshire Boulevard in Hollywood when we felt enthralled by the serenity of Memorial Park Cemetery across Glendon Avenue Gardens. The graceful cemetery was populated by a vast number of spirits. We decided to go in. Overall, the atmosphere was tranquil. Tombstones stood erect as stony appeals to peace, suggestive of reflection and prayer. It was spring, and every native color could be found in the luscious courtyard. Some spirits paced in distress and pressed for answers, while others, visibly debilitated, barely limped aided by their nurses. At a corner, 2 ornaments marked the entrance to a mausoleum where the physical remains of several celebrities were laid to rest. Once inside, we found a plaque with the epigraph, Marilyn Monroe, 1926 to 1962. Quite stunned, I turned to my friend Clinton in disbelief. Is this the Marilyn Monroe whose sudden death shocked even us in the spirit world?
Yes, but here you'll find much more than the remains of a legend. She is sitting outside over there.
Clinton pointed in the direction of a Chinese elm, and there, under its branches, sat none other than the most celebrated movie icon ever, bringing back so many memories. Just short steps away, she rested her platinum hair on the lap of a young lady that looked after her. She seemed distant and pensive. We had obtained permission to ask only a couple of questions because her condition was delicate. Clinton introduced us, and I quickly said, I am a friend from Brazil who cares to hear anything you would like to say.
Does a Brazilian seek me out in the beyond?
Why not? Your experience would be so valuable to so many all around the world.
You mean my failure?
A life's lesson.
How can I help?
Your life made such huge impact on the audiences. Just a few words for the sake of those who worshipped you, and still do.
But who wants to hear a sad story?
Pain teaches much.
Look, I was a woman like many others, with neither time nor disposition for philosophical issues.
Nevertheless, I'm interested.
All right then. Tell women not to be deceived by beauty and money, freedom and fame. They will lead to success, but what a slippery road it can be.
Should women stay at home?
No. The household is a responsibility of both men and women. I am referring to women's age-old fight for equal rights. Now that they are on much more equal footing, especially in the developed nations, they must exercise caution. Freedom, like money, power, or intelligence, is very powerful, and so it can be very dangerous. Exercise caution.
Marilyn got me thinking about the many implications of her wild success. Miss Monroe, when you speak about equal rights, are you referring to sexual freedom?
Especially sexual freedom.
In what way?
Judging from the obstacles that women have faced as opposed to men throughout history, it comes as a natural consequence that these days they feel empowered by a strong sense of entitlement to every kind of experience. That can easily come at the expense of a life well lived. Now, back in the spirit world, I see that each incarnation endows the spirit with a new level of consciousness, and hence the challenges we encounter. Each time a woman flees from her responsibilities, she is undermining her own evolution.
You mean to say that sex?
Sex is a doorway into the physical life, a mighty tool that can make or break depending on the use we give it.
Fascinating. Would you elaborate further?
I really lack the necessary knowledge to speak on such sensitive a subject. I do know that it is a sublime mechanism that allows the love of God to take its course in both the physical and spirit realms. When it is not treated with reverence and respect, we are swept by strong forces coming from the lower zones.
Miss Monroe, I am delighted to see that your suicide did not hamper your lucidity.
My suicide was not so. The living freely speak about the dead since we cannot respond. They forget that one day they will be in our place. In reality, I had been afflicted by the effects of a severe spiritual obsession for a long time. I was deep in depression. Since childhood, I wrestled with my emotions. No one ever showed me any boundaries, and so I had trouble managing my freedom. After many sleepless nights with neither guidance nor faith to sustain me, and almost in a state of unconsciousness, I ingested what expelled me from my body. My intention was only to get some sleep.
Were you able to sleep through your transition?
Not at all. When the housekeeper knocked on my bedroom door, I awoke and saw myself in two places at the same time. I screamed, but nobody could hear me because I was already out of my body. To my horror, I realized that my house was full of spirits who had been draining my energies the whole time. Worse yet, next I followed what happened to my physical remains with great anguish. But this is a chapter that I beg you not to make me revisit.
How is it possible for you to be aware of your spiritual surroundings while asleep and intoxicated?
Well, remember that I did not have the intention to commit suicide. I was classified, though, as an indirect suicide since I squandered, in the name of art, and all sort of self-indulgence and excesses, the very energies given to me to progress and evolve. Not too long ago, I was told by some spirit friends that I would not be fully at ease until I freed myself from the spirits who, like vampires, had grown accustomed to gratifying themselves at my expense. But I knew nothing then about the laws of life.
It is apparent that you now understand the mechanism of spiritual obsession very well.
Yes, I consider spiritual obsession a much greater problem on Earth than cancer. Let's pray to the Lord of Life that science will acknowledge it in the near future.
Marilyn was already showing signs of fatigue, and so I had to conclude our interview. Miss Monroe, I said on a final note, it was a pleasure. Would you briefly share your plans for the future?
In my present condition, I first need to regain my health and strength. Then, I'll return to Earth as a student in the School of Life to pick up where I left off. Realistically, I cannot look forward to anything other than reincarnating to relearn the lesson I failed.
I thanked her. We exchanged our goodbyes, and I saw her small hand waving at us as we left. Later in the day, as I organized my notes, I found myself reflecting on the immeasurable value of the teachings of the Spiritist doctrine and the utmost importance of its dissemination.